Hello everybody and welcome to the 7th session of the course. Today's topic is sampling plans. But before we actually discuss the sampling plans, let us understand what are the basic concepts and the definitions. Let's define the word population. Now population is a collection of all the units from which we are going to sample the units. Next, let's define what is sample. Sample is a subset of the population which is selected for the research purpose, because we cannot study the complete population. It's time taking, it is expensive, so we always take a sample which is a representative from the population. Now let's define another aspect, it's called sampling frame. Sampling frame is nothing but listing of all the units of the population. For instance, if I have a class of 40 students, then maybe your attendance register where your name is written along with a roll number or with a serial number becomes a sampling frame. Now let's define what is sampling error. Sampling error is the difference between population and the samples. Even though the sample is selected from the population, there can be some difference between the sample and the population. So this difference is known as sampling error. There is another aspect which is known as non-sampling errors. Now this error arises when the questionnaire is not designed properly, the wording of the questionnaire is not good, or when the respondents do not understand what has been asked questions, or sometimes we use a different research methods or tool which is not to be used, which is not an appropriate method to be used. Next is sample size. This tells us what should be the minimum number of sample to be studied to come to a conclusion. For instance, if I have to conduct a study in a batch of 40 students, I may not study all of you. Maybe I would like to take only 10 participants or maybe 15 participants, but this is not decided randomly, this is decided with the use of probability, and we have a formula for that. That's called sample size. Now let's come to the sampling techniques. Now sampling techniques are broadly classified into two groups. One is called random sampling technique, the other one is non-random sampling techniques. Let's see what is the random sampling techniques. Now random means probability in statistics. So in a random sampling technique, a unit when it is selected from a population is being assigned a probability. Now let me give you an example. How do we assign probability to each of the units? Let's say I am conducting a research on the gender bias in the workplace. And let's say this class of 40 participants is the population and I have to select only 10 participants from this class. So how do I assign probability? What I do, I prepare 40 chits and write everybody's name, fold it uniformly and then put it in a basket and shuffle it properly. So when I am saying I am shuffling it properly, which means I am becoming unbiased. So when I select, now what I do, now I select 10 chits from this basket. So in this whole process, I am ensuring that everybody has an equal chance to get included in my sample. Now this is just one method of assigning probability, but then there are other methods also. For instance, we have stratified random sampling, we have cluster sampling, we have systematic sampling. Now those we will see in detail in my PPTs. Now let's come to the non-random sampling techniques. So what I do, I take the same example. I still wanted to conduct a research on the gender at the workplace, and this is my population, that is 40 of you are sitting in the class, that is a population, but I do not assign any probability. So what I do, I select only 10 female candidates from this class because I feel they would be appropriate to give me a response on the gender biases at the workplace. Now in this whole example, what is your understanding? You can see that male participants do not have any chance to get included in my sample. So I am being biased. Now even though non-random sampling techniques are biased as compared to random sampling techniques, but we still use both of them. Both these techniques have their advantages and the disadvantages. Sometimes what we do, we combine both these techniques and then we conduct a research. Or there is another way of conducting research is multi-stage sampling method. So we combine 2 and 3 techniques together and then we conduct a sampling technique. With that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you very much.